So it's been a while since we've looked at the Super Brawl series. We've gotten more accustomed to some of the games that were on Nick.com at the time, and I think the time is right to see what Super Brawl 4 brought to the table. This was after Workin' Man had taken over the series, since MP Game Studio shut down in 2011. They had previously given us Super Brawl 3, which was an impressive looking game that garnered a decently sized player base. It had a new art style and did away with the original format of new characters being added to an existing roster with every game. Super Brawl 3 was also interesting because from that point onward, all of the Super Brawls would be completely different. The fourth one, also known as Super Hero Brawl, had a new art style and a new selection of characters. Another new feature was the fact that this wasn't even a Flash game. It was the first in the series to be made using HTML5. I'll probably still put this on my Flash Games playlist though. SpongeBob, Patrick, Plankton, Timmy, Cora, the Turtles, Sanjay, and Craig, and the Breadwinners were carried over from Super Brawl 3, but everyone else was new. They also had voice clips, which was a first for the series.
We can do this!
Alright!
They were really trying a lot of new stuff with this. Everything had a superhero theme, coming off the last game which had a good versus evil theme. Because of this, the cast was determined based on who had a superhero counterpart. As this came out in 2015, SpongeBob and Patrick were included in their super forms from the movie Sponge Out of Water. It may have even inspired the game's concept. The game was updated as it went, and new characters were added over time. At the start, we only had the characters I formerly mentioned, as well as Kid Danger, Red and Pink Ranger, and Harvey Beaks. Eventually, they added Sky Whale, as well as Goat and Banana from Pig Goat Banana Cricket. Now I know what you're thinking. How could they possibly only add two of the most iconic foursome in all of history? Pigs, goats, bananas, and crickets are the most inseparable of concepts, everyone knows that. But hold off your frustration for now, there will be more on this later. You had to unlock most characters by winning a certain number of fights, but nowadays you can find a version that just has everyone available right away. But sadly, with this new cast, we had to say goodbye to some of the older characters. Bloom was the hardest one for me to let go. My heart breaks over it. We also said farewell to longtime Super Brawler Aang, the Rabbids, and the non-main characters from every show except SpongeBob. This would also be the last we would see of any DreamWorks character in a Super Brawl. They had a good run, but we all must move on. So let's get into this. At the menu, we have 3 different modes to choose from, but no multiplayer this time, which was a big part of the last game's appeal. Instead, we have story mode, free play, and a for fun section that gives us a few challenges we can add to spice the battles up. We'll start with story mode. Then we select a character. Hey, what's up with Plankton here? Showing off his manicure or something? SpongeBob and Patrick also have Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy forms, which are separate from their Sponge Out of Water ones. Plankton isn't in his, he's in a robot suit instead. I wonder why they made that decision. Now the art style isn't bad, but I wouldn't say it's as good as Good vs. Evils. It does kind of fit the superhero theme though. Looks a little comic-y. Now unlike in the previous games, the story mode follows a legitimate story with cutscenes at the beginning and in the end. All the Nickelodeon superheroes are meeting up as some big Justice League. I'd like to see a spin-off about that. They're having dinner and Mermaid Man tries to push a gravy button but ends up hitting a button to release sleeping gas instead. I know, it's a real struggle at the dining table. I've ruined a few Thanksgivings by making that mistake. But all the heroes fall asleep for a long period of time. The Red and Pink Ranger are there, so that doesn't explain how they're playable. Maybe they're different incarnations of the characters, but they have the same designs as the ones in the roster. I'm not really familiar with Dino Charge though, so I can't really confirm if there would be more than one person in the exact same outfit. But anyway, with the heroes asleep, no one's there to stop criminals or save people in need. Perch Perkins gives a news report about this. The subheadings at the bottom of the screen are pretty amusing. Can't find other sock, stubbed toe brings pain, needs help crossing the street, water we gonna do, Armageddon outta here, Y2K16 reboots fear of internet, hangnail requests backup, last one out please turn off the lights. So the humor is pretty good, and I'm glad they tried to keep it in the spirit of the shows. So because the heroes are asleep, it's up to the characters from each show to save the day. Now you fight through a series of opponents as whoever you selected. Here's the weird part about the story though. Why are you fighting each other? I know Plankton's a bad guy, but everyone else is good. This story would have actually worked better for 3. I mean, there's potential for a story about heroes trying to save the day by fighting everyone else who's trying to save it before them, but that's besides the point. The final boss is Tiger Claw from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was originally Plankton, but eventually changed. Tiger Claw is absolutely murderous, but you can beat him if you just smash the spacebar enough times. Then in the final cutscene, the heroes just kinda wake up on their own. The game says this is thanks to us, but we didn't really do anything. From a story perspective, I think the characters on the roster should have been emphasized more. They're the ones the game is about after all. But I didn't expect grade A storytelling from a Nickelodeon Flash game anyway. Let's focus on the gameplay for now. There isn't anything like the fans mechanic from 3, but now you have finishers that are totally optional. Kinda like Mortal Kombat fatalities, but with a little less blood. You can select your opponent to be easy, medium, or hard, but to be honest, you'll be fine as long as you can smash the spacebar relentlessly. It doesn't have the most complex battle system. You can jump, dash, guard, and perform a special attack when you fill a meter under your health bar. Once you win 2 rounds, you win the match. You get fun little animations specific to whoever you're playing as, so let's go down the roster and check everyone out. SpongeBob as Invincibubble isn't actually very good. I found it kind of a challenge to win with him. He isn't that fast and his attacks don't always connect. A lot of the time, his special attack will miss and I won't even know what I did wrong. He just attacks directly in front of him, so it isn't exactly the most complex aiming system. For his finishing move, you destroy your spacebar to bubble someone to death. You'll have probably already destroyed your spacebar in the fight leading up to it anyway. Patrick as Mr. Super Awesomeness, on the other hand, will demolish you. He's shockingly hard to fight sometimes. I like how his abs serve as little fists, that's quite the image. He also spams spacebar for his fatality. Sanjay and Craig, on the other hand, are extremely weak. They're really slow, so it's easy to get trampled by a faster enemy. They were super overpowered in 3, so maybe this was compensation. For their finishing move, you drive a car over someone back and forth. It's nice that most of them have different mechanics from one another. Adds more value to choosing one character in particular. Now let's get to the turtles. In 3, most of them kinda controlled more or less the same way, so it's nice to see that the superhero feature allows them to be unique. Mikey as Turf Lydle isn't that strong though. He's a bit on the slower side, but his finisher is interesting because he flies up with an enemy before slamming them down into the ground. Leo as Captain Ryan is the best one. He might actually be my favorite to play as in the whole game. He's fast, he has a cool dash, and his special move turns an enemy into a realistic farm animal. When it hits, that is. His finisher is interesting, but kinda hard to pull off. You aim a constantly moving cursor over to your enemy who's gotten a lot smaller, then you keep it locked in place for lasers to shoot at them. Donnie, aka Dash Coolstar, is pretty well-rounded. He has a good special attack, but his finisher is weird. You have to can your enemy to death, but it's kinda hard to aim. Raph is Krognard the Barbarian, and he's pretty fun to control. Standard though. For his finishing move, he screams stuff at you, including LOL. Skywhale's kinda bad, but you get to Nyan Cat your opponent as a fatality. What Mortal Kombat game can you do that? The Power Rangers are predictably tough. They cause explosions wherever they go. Pink's special move kinda sucks, but she makes up for it by ruthlessly demolishing the opponent with her regular attack. Their finishers are basically the same controls with different animations. The Breadwinners aren't great. Like the other duo, they're kinda slow and not the most interesting to control. Harvey Beaks, on the other hand, is pretty tough. Watch this bird absolutely destroy Avatar State Korra. Korra's great too, and she's in the air the whole time, so that makes her a unique character choice. Now let's check out Banana, and would you believe it? Pig, Goat, and Cricket are right there in the background to cheer you on. So what do you know? They weren't separated after all. Of course Workin' Man knew better than to keep them apart. This story does have a happy ending. Banana's also really good, both as a fighter and as a food. But you know who isn't good? Mermaid Man SpongeBob. He might actually be the worst fighter in the whole thing. He tires himself out after an attack and falls asleep in the middle of combat. This character had to be a joke. He's extremely slow and his special attack, which assembles the creatures of the deep, is really ineffective. You get to stare at his face for his finishing move though. Patrick as Barnacle Boy is okay, but he attacks with barnacles and they're really nasty to look at, especially when he builds a tower with them. Now Plankton is a menace. He's really fast and has a cool special attack. His finishing move is conceptually the same as Invincibubble's, so he's basically a better version of him. Goat is pretty mid-range, but her finisher is hard to pull off. Kid Danger isn't the greatest either, but some good old-fashioned button mashing can fix that. Timmy as Cleft is right up there with Leo as the most fun to play as. You can really make use of his superpowers, and I love the fire-breathing special attack you can do. And then there's Tiger Claw, who isn't playable. He dashes around and shoots you. Hey, he's the toughest character because he's the only one who just outright brought a gun. Are you surprised? But aside from the roster, each level is different because we have stage hazards this time around. Sometimes they can be annoyingly disruptive, like the minecart in this stage or when Man Ray shoots you in the Murmalair. But if you really want to shake up the fights, check out the For Fun section. You can have random effects happen to the fighters to affect the battle, you can make everything go by super fast, you can make it so special attacks are always accessible, you can make the fighters tiny. Shame Plankton doesn't use his regular form in this. You can do sudden death where both fighters only have 25% of health going into it. You can disable jumping, and you can even fight in a void without any stage hazards. So obviously, with all these features, you really have to hand it to the devs. They didn't hold back when filling this game with stuff to do, even if they didn't include a multiplayer mode. At the same time, I do have a few criticisms. When I previously glossed over this game, I jokingly referred to it as Loading Screens the video game. That's quite an accurate way of describing it. This game has a lot of loading screens, more so than any other Super Brawl. Sometimes they can take a while. There have been a few instances where the loading screens would freeze and I'd have to restart. I could never tell if they were bugging out or just taking a long time because the load times can be pretty annoying to begin with. And again, I think the story mode could have benefited from involving the actual fighters more, but as far as features and balance goes, this game is pretty decent. I don't think it's on par with Super Brawl 2 or 3, but maybe on equal ground with all the original games put together. Again, this really does seem like you can just button mash your way to victory most of the time. I think it would have benefited from a multiplayer mode, but there is one other thing we need to check out. Like how 3 was given Just Got Real as a spin-off for April Fool's Day, this also had a holiday spin-off. This is Scary Brawl, the Halloween edition. It doesn't have all the characters from the fully updated version, but it did change some aspects here and there. Everything looks a lot spookier, and we only have one mode to choose from. You fight through a bunch of opponents that have ghostly auras around them, then you unlock something called a ghost relic for whoever you played as. This allows you to fight with your own ghostly aura. You also get fog around the screen. There really isn't any major benefit to playing this over the original, just if you want to make things a little spookier. So ultimately, Super Brawl 4 was an interesting direction for the series to go in. Not bad, but not perfect. Still decent though. It has that cartoony superhero feel going for it. It serves as yet another chapter in Super Brawl history. Thank you for joining me, I will see you in the next memory.